welcome to OK Boomer.
Well, no, that's tomorrow. Hello and welcome to another episode of our 007 Retrospective. Today we're talking about Goldfinger.
That's a nice sweater. Did you get stuck in Mr. Rogers' closet again? So, what do you think of Goldfinger?
Still great. Still love it. It's hard to not like it for the most part. Still, I think the quintessential Bond film. Right balance of fun, campy, action, thriller.
It's got all the best elements of the James Bond movies that we love, but it's like this is like the first one that really sold that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good. I kept asking you, like, who was directing these first three movies, because this one felt very different. The first two are good, but they're slow paced. But this one is just like constantly moving, and even then, it's like, what?
Maybe not like that, but
well, no, but it's a good pace.
Yeah, things happen, and
when relatively like not much is happening for Bond himself. He's just kind of like the first half of the movie is just him going after Goldfinger, and then the other half is him being his prisoner.
Yeah. The biggest thing about this movie is that Q has a meaty role and gadgets come into play, and that totally changes the franchise. Sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. But I just looked this up the other day that after this movie they started selling toys and things.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me.
So, but yeah, I think they balance the use of the gadgets just enough. Like the car scene, the car chase is pretty cool. It's loaded with gadgets, but they're just kind of there. They don't really save him.
It's true, and they're only really used in like one solid scene. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, there's everything.
Except the little GPS, which is like, whoa, GPS.
Yeah. What a time to be alive.
Yeah. Just be grateful, okay? Okay, millennial, be grateful.
Well, the reality
Back in my
is,
day.
the reality is, we wouldn't have Garmin or TomTom or Apple Maps if
James
it wasn't
Bond
for
didn't exist.
Yeah, if it wasn't for James Bond.
The gadgets are there, they're fun, but they're not, I don't know, they're not gimmicky. Or they don't save him at the last second.
They're not as gimmicky as they will become one day.
Right, which we'll talk about soon. Hey, can you hand me my cigarette that shoots a rocket? But anyway, we'll get there.
Oh, it's on the way.
But yeah, you do think of the car chase in this versus the one in like Die Another Day, which is just so incredibly over the top. And
It's like Die Another Day's style is like Goldfinger style dialed up to 11.
on crack cocaine.
So
yeah.
it's like now we're way beyond realism.
It's fun. It's a little campy. There are a lot of explosions, a lot of unnecessary explosions in this movie. Like when the plane hits the water.
It explodes right before. Yeah.
Like, what do we do with this extra $1 million we have in the budget? More explosions?
Michael
Okay.
Bay. That's where Michael Bay got his inspiration, I guess.
And I just love the shot of Granny at the toll booth, like, trying to mow down the Aston Martin. Like,
I love that.
it's like, Granny, no, it's such a beautiful car.
She's a no-nonsense woman. She's had plenty of lovers, and she's scorned. She is a scorned woman.
Again, there's still, I think, some parts that are a little dated. The scene when Goldfinger has the mafia men in his little pool room where he's about to kill them but wants to tell them how genius he is and let the one guy escape before he also kills him.
Yeah.
It's like, does he just like...
My favorite thing about that scene, though, was all the reactions. They're like, hey, what's going on here? Hey, why is that wall coming down?
Yeah, like that. It's just like a little like, Where are you trying to pull, Goldfinger?
And he's just
You
like,
mean this isn't a pool table?
I thought this was just a friendly game today.
Yeah, I think he just likes to brag and then kill them. I don't know. I guess it's kind of twisted. It shows you how crazy Goldfinger is. But anyways, in that scene, like, there's that, and then when he gasses them, like, these blue and red lights flash, and then they're like, ah!
Yeah, like, you're sitting there going, where's this lighting come
Like,
from?
is that how gas works? Like, I've never been gassed before, but...
You need the police to chase you down sometime. We'll see what happens. Not that that's ever happened to me.
And then later, this always pops out at me when the planes fly over and gas everyone. I know they're faking it by passing out, but they're just like...
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I guess no one's watching you, really, but it's just it's like over the top.
And
like,
they did so many shots. They had like
Yeah.
so many groups. Like, we
Just
got
so
the
you
point
know.
after like 2 or 3, but it's like, here's like 7 shots of everybody just...
Well, what do they say? There are 41,000 troops or something. I don't
I guess it was fun. It was funny to watch. It's
But
amazing.
aside from a few moments like that and the sexism, it doesn't feel too dated. I mean, it holds up better than many of them, I think.
Well, speaking of sexism,
Here we go.
why
Boomer.
don't we get into the greatest name you've ever heard in a James Bond movie? Pussy Galore.
Are we allowed to say that?
Well, we have to. It's part of the review. Can CNN say hole? I think they can.
When you and I are hanging out or around each other, how often do I say Corey Kohler? It's like James Bond says the word pussy like 50 times in this movie. It's like, hey, pussy, how you doing, pussy? Like, yeah, we get it, that's her name, but like, he's just like, I mean, I don't know. It's part of James Bond is being campy and having silly names, but
Which is the basis for Goldmember.
well, Pussy Galore is a great character. She's a strong woman, and
Yeah, she's a no nonsense. Like she doesn't fall to the whim of James
yeah,
so willingly.
she's good at martial arts, and she can shoot a gun and fly a plane and all that stuff. And she seems immune to his charm. I guess she's
At least
a lesbian or bisexual, but
there's something.
at least at
yeah.
first.
Yeah, that you know what? Now that you mentioned that, that is like the first push forward for LGBTQ. I mean, it's subtle.
Wait,
It's
well-
subtle. You think?
They're displaying a gay character, but probably not in the best light, if you think about it.
Well, not when you call her pussy.
I mean, I don't know. I always kind of felt, well, what's her name from number 3? I guess she is from Russia with Love. Got some lesbian vibes from her.
Oh yeah.
And I'm thinking of the henchman in Diamonds Are Forever.
Yeah.
Most significant gay
That's
portrayal.
another-
But we'll come back to that. But as far as Pussy Galore goes, yeah, she's a pretty solid Bond girl.
Well, I like the fact that she is so independent and she's just kind of like. Well, she's also kind of a henchman. That's the funny thing. She's actually a henchman of Goldfinger, but I don't think she really cares about his pursuits. She's just doing her job.
Mm-hmm.
And she, brings up that line about business over pleasure. So she's like, in order to woo James Bond and keep him out of the way, she has to put on her feminine charm, which she does very well.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually like that moment when they have that little like fight match where they like throw each other in the barn. Like, I think that's an interesting representation of the characters, but then it just gets...
Yeah, like they're almost equals. Like, she's almost a female version of him, but then it gets
interestingly aggressive.
yeah, it's like kind of playful wrestling. Like, hey, look at this cool move, and then
Like, tee.
and then he doesn't take no for an answer. But we have this beautiful like music like to let us know like, no, it's okay. They're gonna fall in love. Don't worry that this is really rapey. And,
Culture, man.
I wonder if they. I don't know. Watching it this time, I was thinking, what did people back then think of that scene? Like, did they have an issue, or did they just kind of roll their eyes and like, oh, that's James Bond?
Well, I think the majority of people in the theater were probably like 90% male. And the women they brought along, they're just like, want to go see a movie? I mean, Sean Connery's easy on the eyes, ladies.
But is it enough to convert a lesbian?
Probably not. Hey, when they're hardcore, man. They don't change for nothing.
And there's something about later, like, then it kind of fades to black, whatever, and then they go into the execution of Goldfinger's plan, and you realize that DC has been alerted of this whole thing, and it plays out, and I'm thinking, well, one, couldn't Bond just convince her, like, hey, 60,000 people are going to die, like, maybe you should call DC? Or no, it's like, should I convince her with... I don't want to word this.
Convince her with your penis.
Well, yeah, it's like, should I convince her with my penis or with, like, the appeal to, like, saving 60,000 people?
That's the sad truth of this movie, though.
But then, later he's, like, surprised. Like, he didn't know this was going to happen. So it's like... So they did whatever they did in the barn, and she wasn't convinced, and she made the decision on her own. I don't know.
Good for her.
It's just a weird scene. It's such a major story point because she's the one that ultimately saves the day. But all we get is this forced sex scene that Anyways,
As I've said before, and I'll say it again, we have grown since then.
and now we grown. But yes, and then of course there's the famous moment of man talk. Psh, get out of here.
Yeah.
Which is always an eye roller. This time around, I'm like, it's kind of quick, and he is talking to a CIA member, but also it's like unnecessary. Like, get me a slushy, babe. I don't know, or
Is that what men say?
I don't know.
I never talk about slushies.
Or hey, would you mind we need to talk about CIA things.
No. Must show aggression. That's not enough. There we go. See, now I want you more.
Can we talk about saving the world?
Go ahead, keep doing that. I want more. Yeah. See, look how much it works. Let's take a moment and look at every scene that he has with Goldfinger, where it's just them being casually, like, social around each other. Because there's always I think that's probably the most interesting thing is how the villain is like, yeah, I'm just gonna keep him close to me so that way he doesn't interfere with my plans. And then they just have that like golf match, and we've said before, in previous videos where like Daniel Craig's James Bond would never have a scene that's just casual golf or casual. But the reality is Casino Royale had a card game.
Scene, yeah.
And that's fairly casual, but you can have that scene be very tense with how you play the moves, who's, underhanding each other. And that's kind of like the basic version of what's happening here. I mean, it's a little bit more lighthearted. Mm-hmm. But he's like, yeah, no, I found his actual golf ball over here, and I know he cheated, so let's have some fun. And I think in the basic sense, that's pretty entertaining.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 007 is a better cheater than Goldfinger. Yeah, no, they have Goldfinger has a lot of screen time in this, and they have a lot of scenes like this that are just fun and interesting.
I also love how Goldfinger is like, you could easily, like, as in Goldmember, how it's like, I love gold! and yeah, I mean, clearly that's what this guy's all about, but at the same time, he's not as over the top as he might come across. He's just like, yeah, I love gold and I'm willing to kill people over it.
Yeah, he's not a maniac, aside from murdering people. I mean, he's just like, yeah, I want gold, and he doesn't really hate Bond. He's like really enjoying that. He's just like, yeah, I'm really smart. Like, enjoy this with me.
It's like how I imagine Jeff Bezos to be.
I also feel like he says goodbye to people a lot.
He's just being polite.
Sometimes he's like sassy about it, but I love he's like, goodbye, Mr. Bond.
Have a good day, Mr. Bond.
When he puts him in the in Fort Knox with the nuclear bomb, he's like kind of somber about it. He's like, goodbye, Mr. Bond. And it's like, man.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm sorry I have to kill you. It's been fun.
Yeah, but the one classic moment in this movie that I go back to every time when you mention James Bond is the moment he has the laser going up to his groin.
Yeah.
And he's saying, you want me to talk? And he's like, no, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. Like, it's just so much fun.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not here to interrogate you or hold you hostage. I just want to play with you and cut off your penis, because that's fun. Whatever.
Every man in the audience went,
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that moment is so well loved and epitomizes the franchise, I guess. But yeah.
He's not the dastardly villain that wants to get him to say stuff. He's like, no, I just want you to die, man.
Just hanging out, yeah.
Whatever, cool.
So, and it's a great scene for Connery, too, because he sweet talks his way out of it.
I think pretty intelligently, actually.
But then Goldfinger's like, well, now I'm going to use that to my advantage, because I'm going to keep you around to kind of manipulate the CIA. Like, he's right. Like, eventually people are going to come looking for him. Mm-hmm. And he later sidetracks Felix and the other guy, or thinks he has fooled them. I love the music. I think Shirley Bassey has a beautiful voice.
Yeah, this is the first...
Bassey, I never know anymore.
This is the first Bond theme with the female singer, and I think that's what a lot of people associate with the intros nowadays.
Yeah, and this just that theme that continues throughout is great. But we were just talking about this a moment ago. Like, the lyrics to this are pretty intense. Like, if you didn't know anything about 007 and you read these lyrics, you would not picture the villain that they present. Like,
imagine this in your mind. Go ahead, Josh.
The man with the Midas touch, a spider's touch, beckons you to enter his web of sin, but don't go in. I don't know. Golden words he will pour in your ear. No, he's gonna like burp and fart in your ear.
Now that's a villain.
For a golden girl knows when he's kissed her, it's the kiss of death from Mr. Goldfinger. I don't see him kissing anybody.
And then you imagine this.
Yeah. This.
Do you imagine this?
I don't know. It's a great song though. Let's talk about one of the other greatest characters in this film, Oddjob.
I love Odd Job so much.
We're gonna have to revisit this later, but I think he's the best henchman, if not the top 2 or 3.
What is it about henchmen that say very, very little that everybody just loves?
Ah!
It's the presence. It's the presence and what they do. That's the same thing with Darth Maul. Darth Maul barely has any words, but Darth Maul's presence is enough to strike it in everybody's mind.
Yeah, there's like so many great moments, like when he crushes the golf ball, he's like, I know what you did, I just can't verbalize it. And he just walks around like with his chest like...
He's one cocky, confident guy.
He's just so... I love, after they crash the Aston Martin, he looks up in the mirror, he's like... He does again, like, Bond throws the gold brick at him, which is so great. Just...
He is the best.
Like, so great. I kind of hate to see him die because he's just so lovable in a weird way. And the hat is, of course, just a wonderful little gimmick.
Didn't they do that? Didn't they parody that in something? Was it
Shoe? Who throws a shoe? Honestly,
yeah.
I mean, yeah. Anything that Austin Powers parodies, was well done in the Bond franchise.
It's great.
But yeah, I just love that whole the last fight scene with Odd Job. I think is, it's simple, but I think it's well executed. To me, it's more interesting than what's going on outside with the.
If I remember correctly, that was the first time we see Goldfinger actually get his hands dirty.
Yeah.
Where he's like, yeah, go in there. He's in there, and he just runs down and just machine guns all of them down. Okay, I'm not saying that we didn't enjoy him as a villain for the last 2 hours of the film, but the moment he does that, you're like, okay, yeah, this guy's he's messed up. Because everything he did was indirect.
Yeah.
And now it's just like, nope, I'm willing to get my hands dirty when it comes time.
All right, so how do you rate this one?
It's funny because it's, like I said, it's not as good as I quite remember, but it's still one of my favorites, and it is the first one to really get the ball rolling as to what we know James Bond to be, and we have a lot of fun. But it still kind of takes his spy stuff seriously. So 4.25, I think.
Yeah, I think the fanboy in me will do a 4.5 as a Bond film. It's hard not to place it in the top 1 or 2, but just because I don't know, it sets the bar, hits on so many levels, and it's still a lot of fun all these years later.